Hello everybody and welcome to another Destiny build video. So this build is going to be a Prismatic Hunter build. Now, I wanted to try to use something that pretty much nobody uses, and I think I was able to do that and kind of mix it in with God tier abilities, God tier loadout, something that is very famous on Hunter already that honestly kind of amplifies the build, makes it a little better. So I took the famous, very iconic combination blow Gambler's Dodge Hunter build and put it with Balance of Power. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to spawn, obviously, our decoys on Prismatic, but it's also going to let you go ahead and have a ton of threadlings on them. They're also going to last about 2/3 as long, so you're going to have even more, obviously, sitting there and distracting enemies, meaning that you can kind of not take fire and all that. So it's actually pretty insane. So without further ado, let me show you how to put this build together. So starting off with our build, we're going to go down here to our exotic of choice, which is going to be the Balance of Power. So Balance of Power is going to make our Threaded Spectors, aka our decoys, have increased duration and durability, and damaging it will also release additional threadlings. And then technically, while we're near our Threaded Spector, we will not appear on radar. Obviously, that's more for PvP and really has no implications for PvE. So Balance of Power is going to allow our decoys to have 2 additional threadlings on them. And when the decoy breaks or an enemy gets close and obviously explodes, those threadlings will get sent out. So our decoys are not just going to only be for distraction now, which is mainly what decoys are for, honestly, even when you don't have the Balance of Power on. I feel like they're pretty useless except for drawing fire. But now this kind of makes them into a weapon. If an enemy goes up and melees it, a ton of threadlings are going to jump out at them. And if the enemy dies, then they're going to go out for other enemies. And obviously, they're going to distract for 2/3 as long. And they're going to have more durability, aka health, so that they can't even be broken that easy. Meaning that your decoys are now basically going to sit there for a very, very long time distracting fire, meaning you're going to be kept alive for a lot longer, making them much better. Honestly, a very undervalued and underappreciated exotic armor, I feel like. Now for the stats, all you're going to want is around a 100 or higher melee and a 100 or higher class. Obviously, that is the main iconic stats that you want with the Gambler's Dodge and Combination Blow build. So you're going to want those two up. Obviously, if you get your class way over 100, then you also get some overshield every time you use that dodge, which is going to be pretty much all the time. And obviously the same thing goes for your melee. Getting it over 100 is going to increase your PvE damage with melee attacks, so another good one. So you're really going to want to try to get each of them up to about a 200, as close as you can to a 200. And then it's kind of up to you which one you have at 200 or which one you might have at 150, etc. That's kind of up to you and your playstyle. And that goes for the other stats as well. You can put the other 4 stats to whatever you would like and whatever fits your playstyle. Now moving over here to our weapon is going to be Bastion. Bastion is going to be a great option for this build, and that's going to be because Bastion is going to fire a 3-round burst, obviously. Now, the main thing about Bastion, besides the fact that it is intrinsically unstoppable champion, is that when you get the majority of the pellets hit in a burst, it's going to give you 3 seconds where your next melee hit will give a 300% increase to your melee damage for that hit. So hit some enemy with the majority of the pellets in the burst, and then it's going to go ahead and give you 300% bonus melee damage on your next hit within 3 seconds. So it's absolutely insane. And then when you deal melee damage, which we are because of this build, Bastion will get 45% increased damage and an increase to its charge time and reload speed. So that is obviously going to be absolutely insane because we're going to be buffing Bastion's damage and buffing our melee damage. And we're basically going to be able to chain Bastion with our melee and our dodge and kind of create an endless loop that is incredibly strong. Up next is going to be our subclass, which is going to be the Prismatic Hunter. So we're going to start off here with our super, which is technically a go ahead and use whatever you like. Now, personally, I like Silk Strike because this will give us Woven Mail when we get Orbs of Power. So that's why I like having on Silk Strike. Silk Strike is also a pretty strong one and probably one of the best top 3 ones for Prismatic Hunter. So I like this one to use. But you can technically go ahead and use whichever one you would like, but you just won't get the Woven Mail from Facet of Purpose. Now for our dodge, you're obviously going to want Gambler's Dodge, as this is what's going to obviously refund our combination blow. For your jump, you can go ahead and use whatever jump you would like, obviously whichever one you're most comfortable with, as there is no jump that is needed for this build. For your melee, you're going to want Arc, which is Combination Blow. This is obviously the one that's going to do a lot of melee damage, but also refund our dodge when we get a kill with it. So that is obviously why you're going to want Combination Blow, so that we can chain combination to our dodge, to our combination, to our dodge, and etc. And then for your grenade, you can technically use whichever grenade you can want. Technically. But grapple will count as melee damage when you use a grapple melee, meaning anything you have buffing melee damage, such as Bastion and all that, is going to count. Which is why I would recommend using grapple, so it kind of gives you a second, more powerful melee, and it's also going to unravel enemies, which is good for another reason you'll see when we get to the fragments. Now starting over here for our aspects is going to be Stylish Executioner. This is a pretty nice one, so that was when we defeat a target that is affected by an elemental debuff, whether that is obviously Unravel from our grapple or any other source. It's going to allow us to go invisible, and when we go invisible and perform a Stylish Execution, our next melee attack, while invisible, will weaken targets. So that is going to obviously allow us that when we are invisible and we get a punch kill with our combination blow, it should theoretically weaken the enemy, and obviously killing him will make us invisible again, continuously restarting the chain. And last but not least, obviously, is going to be Threaded Spector. As that's the main focus around the whole build, Threaded Spector is going to make so that when we use our dodge, it leaves behind a decoy. And obviously that decoy will draw the attention and fire of all nearby combatants. After it takes significant damage, or when combatants approach it, the decoy will detonate, dealing damage and releasing some threadlings that seek out and attack nearby foes. It is about 2 threadlings, and then if you add the 2 from our exotic boots, Balance of Power, it is going to send 4 threadlings out when it gets destroyed. So it's absolutely insane. Now moving over here to our fragments, we're going to start with Facet of Protection, obviously a very, very important one of the most essential fragments in the game. This is obviously going to make it that when we're surrounded by combatants, we get some damage resistance. After that is going to be Facet of Purpose. This is the one that's going to allow us that when we pick up an Orb of Power, we will get an elemental buff based on our equipped super. Arc gives you Bolt Charge, Solar gives you Restoration, Void gives you Overshield, Stasis gives you Frost Armor, and Strand, which is what we should be running, is going to give us Woven Mail. Next, we're going to use Facet of Courage. So this is going to allow our Arc, Solar, and Void abilities, aka our Combination Blow, to deal increased damage to targets afflicted with darkness debuffs. So what this means and why it is kind of important to use Grapple, but you could also theoretically use Duskfield for the same effect, is that our Combination Blow, light melee attacks with our Facet of Courage here, is going to allow it to do 50% increased damage. So Combination Blow will deal 50% increased damage to enemies affected by Slow, Freeze, Sever, Suspend, or Unravel, which obviously we can unravel with Grapple, and we can also slow and freeze from Duskfield. Hence why you're probably going to want one of these 2 specifically, because if you have a big enemy like a champion or something of that sort, you're going to want to put Unravel or Slow on it and then use your Combination Blow, and that's going to allow you to do 50% more damage to him, which is why it is a very nice one to have on. Now moving over to Facet of Dawn, obviously another great one. So this is going to be that when we use a powered melee hit against a target, it will make us Radiant. Radiant is going to give our weapons 20% increased damage, which should theoretically stack, I believe, with Bastion's plus 45% that we get for a melee hit. So this is going to kind of be more like a 65% damage bonus when we get a hit with our melee for Bastion. And obviously also Radiant is also going to work on all of our other weapons, so that's pretty nice in itself. And last but not least, we're going to use Facet of Blessing. Facet of Blessing is going to allow it that when we get a melee final blow, technically I believe it is even an unpowered one, will count as well. So even if you get a kill that doesn't have Combination Blow active, it will start health regeneration. This is obviously a very nice one, and while Combination Blow kills will pretty much heal us a little bit, nice little chunk, it's also now going to start health regen, giving us, even if we get shot in like a second, is still going to give us like another 20 hit points probably per second or whatever. So it is pretty nice. That's just going to be another way that we can stay alive a little longer by getting our health regen to start. And like I said, even if you get hit 3 seconds after it starts, you probably regen around 40 to 50, maybe 60 hit points, depending on how much your health stats at. which is pretty nice for survivability and to make this build even better. Of course, every build has its armor mods. So starting over here with the helmet, we're going to use a kinetic siphon. This is going to make it so that if we get rapid kills with our Bastion, obviously that will create an orb of power. You can also switch this to something else if maybe you're using like a solar auto rifle more than normal. Then obviously you can use that one instead, put on a solar siphon. It is kind of up to you, but kinetic siphon is a good choice. And then we're going to pair it with double hands on. Obviously get bonus super energy on melee kills. Obviously the entire build is about getting melee kills, so this is going to be a pretty good option. Now moving down here to the gauntlets, we're going to start with an impact induction. That is when we cause damage with a combination blow attack. It will reduce our grenade cooldown. Just another way that we're going to be able to get our, obviously, strand or stasis grenade, hopefully that's the one you went with, to get our stasis or strand elemental debuffs for our Facet of Courage. So this is going to be a good one, and we're going to pair it with double heavy-handed. That way our powered melee final blows will create orbs of power. Just another little way that we're going to create some more orbs. Obviously, the key part about picking up orbs is obviously going to be that we get woven mail. Now moving down here to the chest piece, we're going to put on double melee damage resistances. This is obviously great since we're always going to be at point blank range with some enemies, and this is going to allow us to take reduced damage. And then technically you can put on any other kind of dampener or resistance that you want. I put concussive because there's obviously a lot of area of effect damage in these activities, especially higher end activities, so I decided to go with that. Now for your balance of power, you're going to want double recuperation. This is going to allow it that every time you pick up an orb, you will get a guaranteed 70 hit points. Just another way that we're going to make sure that we will stay alive a lot longer. And then we're going to pair it with absolution, so that way it will reduce all of our ability cooldowns, our dodge, obviously our melee, and our, hopefully and more specifically, our grenade when we pick up an orb. Now you might be going, okay, that's pretty good, but why do I need it for melee? Why do I need it for class? And technically you don't, unless you can't get to a 100. If you can only get to about an 80, 85, 70, 75, then absolution is going to help you get out of that, so that way you can maybe get it back when you pick up an orb. Now if you do have them at 100 and you have no problem whatsoever, then you can swap absolution to anything you want, whether you just want innervation, maybe you want a weapon surge, whatever you like, you can do. And last but not least is going to be our cape, and we're going to use an outreach and a bomber. Yet again, another thing, outreach is going to help us make sure we get that little top off when we use our gambler's dodge, so that we get back our melee, especially if we're not at a 100. And then obviously bomber is self-explanatory, same thing before our grenade, which obviously we need all the help we can get, because obviously there's nothing that's going to refund grenade energy. Bungie, please add melee and grenade cooldown reduced with gambler's dodge. Might be a little broken, but, you know, it'd be really nice. Would be really nice. So, outreach and bomber, and then we're going to pair it with Reaper, so that way when we use our gambler's dodge, we get an orb of power spawn guaranteed on our next final blow of the weapon. Now, last but not least is going to be our final artifact of our final video in the Edge of Fate. As tomorrow, or technically when you're watching this, in probably about 12 hours, the servers will go down. Obviously, we're going to move over to Renegades. So this will be the final artifact showing it. Now, obviously the artifact is going to leave in like literally, like I said, probably not even 12 hours when this video comes out. So I'm just going to leave it right here. If you want to pause it, put these on when you use it in your like final 2 portal activities, feel free to. Obviously in Renegades, put on the artifact mods that match the build the best. And yeah, so say goodbye to the implement of curiosity as we come forth to the Renegades artifact. So with all that being said, that's going to be everything that you need to put this build together. As you see, it is incredibly strong. It got me through a literal ultimate solo op with even extinguish on. So obviously you die once, you get sent to orbit. It is so incredibly strong. You honestly cakewalk through some of the activities because of how strong this build is. And obviously enemies can't even look at you because of Decoy. You're pretty much one-tapping almost every single enemy, except this one swarm guy that literally takes no damage when you hit him. But it is incredibly strong. Like I said, one-tap almost every enemy. Enemies aren't even looking at you. And this build is pretty much guaranteed to get you that sweet, sweet loot using Bastion and, of course, a very underrated exotic in Balance of Power. So with all that being said, though, that's going to be the end of this video. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this build. And while you're down there, if you like the video, then why not hit the like button, subscribe, comment, share, all that good jazz, because it lets me know that you like the build videos. So with all that being said though, this is the final video in the Edge of Fate era, as literally probably about, like I said earlier, 12 hours from now we'll be moving into the Renegades era. So with all that being said, I cannot wait to get out of this era because it's been pretty much a dog water era. I have no shame in saying that. So let's hope Renegades is better. Let me know in the comments below if you're hyped for Renegades. And with all that though, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, I will see you in the Lawless Frontier.